Good evening, councillors. I'm going to start the meeting this evening at 5:32. Welcome to our councillors to the meeting, and welcome to our attendees that are joining us on Zoom this evening to the final council meeting of this term of council. Due to the current COVID pandemic and in accordance with requirements of the Public Health Order, the November 2021 Ordinary Council meeting will have limited access for members of the public to attend. The meeting will be live streamed via Zoom webinar facilities. A link to the council meeting will be available via the council website. Recordings of council meetings or parts thereof cannot be copied, recorded, reproduced, reused or transmitted without the prior written consent of the General Manager. The meeting is being recorded and made publicly available on Council's website, and persons attending the meeting should refrain from making any defamatory statements. Council acknowledges that this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Wiradjuri, Gundungurra and Darug people and respects the history and culture of the elders both past and present. I will ask Councillor Doney to open the meeting with a prayer, and then Councillor Gibbons will also offer a prayer. Could we all stand, please?
If we'd like to join in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for your Son who gave us a revelation of the nature of God and of servant leadership. We pray and give thanks for this community as its time of leadership draws to a close. And we thank you for that opportunity we have had to serve. In particular, we pray for our mayor and those councillors stepping down. We pray those may rest and rejuvenate and feel proud of their efforts. We pray for staff and those standing again. We give thanks for their willingness to contribute to this community. Lord, all we have is you. We add little and we take away with us nothing. Help all to treasure the grace and gift of this community and the land that you have given us the opportunity to live in. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Councillor Gibbons. Councillor Gibbons. Okay, thank you, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Doney. Record of attendance. There are no apologies this evening.
I was late.
Noted that, Councillor, thank you. Page 5, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest this evening, councillors? I myself am declaring an interest in item 1602. It's non-pecuniary and less insignificant. Are there any others? Councillor McCarthy.
1602, Park Towers. Particular item, Madam Mayor, be sufficient.
Thank you. Any others? Councillor Paper.
Yes, likewise, Madam Mayor, and non-pecuniary, less than significant, item 1602.
Thank you. Councillor Lyon. Councillor Lyon, can we unmute Councillor? Can you unmute Councillor Lyon, please?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, yes, non-pecuniary interest on 1602.
Thank you, councillors. Questions received, councillors, and there are no questions from the public. Confirmation of minutes, item 8 on page 6. The recommendation is that the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 19th of October 2021 be confirmed. Could I have the mover, please? Councillor McKibben, and the seconder, Councillor Kellam. Thank you. Any business arising? No business arising. I'll put the recommendation. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Page 7, item 901, mayoral minute and report. The recommendation is that the report is received as information. Can I have a mover, please, councillors? Councillor Doney and Councillor Craig. Thank you. Councillor Donny, do you wish to speak to the recommendation?
Very briefly, Madam Mayor, again, testament to your work. There's 3 references to the childcare situation in Oberon. Can you just give the meeting an update? After schools childcare situation.
Vacation care. I had a meeting with a member of or resident who had concerns about the
The person you are calling is not available. Please leave a short message and it will
at the St. Joseph's Public School, Central School. I had the interview with Kira Simmons regarding the services in Oberon and what we could do to assist. Meanwhile, the Oberon Public School has now picked up that function, backed by the Education Department, is going to run both vacation care and pre and after school care.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
That's all next year.
That's all.
Councillor Capel, any other
nothing
comments?
further. Thank you,
No,
Madam
no other comment? Councillor McKibben?
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could, halfway down page 7, sorry, probably thirds of the way down page 7, 25th of October, Chris Taylor of Telstra. Just wondering if there's any update on Telstra. Was this just advising that we're now in the southern region rather than the northern region, and that we have a new representative? Who is that, Chris Taylor or someone else? Is he taking over from the gentleman, Mr. Start with him, I can't
Yeah.
remember. Or is he taking over from the person who was at Port?
No, he's taking over from, they were at Port
Josh
Macquarie.
Forward or the other
No,
person?
the other, I can't recall his name, I'm sorry, councillor. Michael,
Michael Moran, Mormon or something like that. Yeah.
and he is taking over, and it was just a 30-minute introductory.
Where's he based, if I can ask?
I think he's at Port Macquarie, I believe.
Is that not Port Macquarie?
I believe so.
Right. So is there someone between him and Michael Moran, or Moran, I think it was? As we had a Josh Forward in the middle, there's no one in between.
Not that I'm aware of, but I can find that out for you if you'd like.
And we have the same technicians, I take it, that
Yeah.
just changed from one line of authority to
One
another.
control base to another.
Thank you, Madam. And did he comment at all on, or make any comment re the Black Springs Tower?
Yes, he did make comment on Black Springs Tower. He reminded us that they still had until 2022 to install it, and that he would ensure that the general managers make contact with.
Calendar 2022?
The DA has been lodged through the portal today.
The DA has been lodged.
The general manager's just alerted me to
Thank you for
that.
that. That's progress. On private line, is it due to be completed 30th of June 2022 or end of calendar year? Do we know? I'll leave that. It's probably
I can
no.
revisit that and give you that information. Councillor.
I'm not expecting obviously to have that now. That's good news for the DAs at least being on and on private land. So they've obviously got the consent of the private land.
We had
Come to
10,
an agreement.
10 minutes before this meeting, council.
So it's off the press news,
That is,
literally.
Is that all, councillor?
That's all. Thank you very much.
Any other element, councillor? Put the recommendation, all in favour? Carried, thank you. Page 10, councillors, notices of motion. 10:01. Notice of appreciation. The motion is that councillors not standing for re-election in the upcoming 2001 local government be acknowledged for the community contribution they have had to the overall community. Can I have a mover? Councillor Kellerman, a second. Councillor Sibbons, thank you. Councillor Kellerman, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I do, Madam Mayor. The councillors who are not standing in this election have done a sterling job. We all came together 4 and a bit years ago now, and we've been through a number of difficult times and good times, but at all times we have remained on friendly terms and worked together well. I learned a lot from all councillors, but I've learnt that from Councillor Donny, who's been here since 2008, I understand. I've learnt that you should always maintain a sense of humour and always get your last word in if you can. And always be right. Yes. From Kerry Gibbons, I've learnt Well, Councillor Gibbons, I've learnt more about roads than I ever thought I needed to know. And I thank you immensely, Kerry, because I didn't know I needed to know that much. And you are a grand teacher. Thank you. Councillor Lyons had done a stint beforehand, of course, and came back again in 2017. And she brought her flair for flowers and trees to the common and to the street landscape. And I thank her for that. Don came in 2017. In fact, we were a bit worried he was never going to make it. So he spent most of the time in hospital before the election. And in fact, this time last year, he was in pretty dire straits. For the meeting candidate, his wife, Jen, did this presentation for him. It's nice to have an old grazier to give me advice about various things and what ways that things can be done. And I thank you for that and your friendship, Don. And now, Madam Mayor, for you. 2012, you started, you were a councillor. You took over on the death of and that must have been a very, very difficult time for you. You then went through probably an equally difficult time with amalgamation and having to lead this council and this community through that terrible, traumatising period. And you did that with extraordinary grace. I watch you constantly in the way you deal with things. You might be like that swan with the legs going flat out, but you're very serene on the surface. And I think that's a testament to your skills. And I'm amazed how any one person can be so well connected to so many places and people in the community. I don't think I've ever mentioned someone to you that you don't know. And that's because of all the work you do around the community, which goes well beyond that's normally required or expected of a mayor. So it's been an interesting 3-year term. It's now gone for 4.25 years. And I wish all those who are not standing well and getting your life back in some way. And for the ones that are staying on and standing, we have an electorate to face. So, Madam Mayor, that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor McKinnon, did you wish to speak to the presentation?
I did, thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish to echo Deputy Mayor Kellam's comments, but I'd also like to, I suppose, speak of each of the individuals. I'd like to thank Councillor Gibbons for all his counsel and advice over the period to all of us. His knowledge, and he's been on the council a long time, and his knowledge of road works and the process of the council and the community as a whole has been, I think, invaluable to us all. And I certainly think he's been invaluable for his efforts to this council. Councillor Doney, I've really enjoyed sparring with you. You have a great sense of humour. You can be very self-deprecating, and you've really done very, very well for the O'Connell community and for the community as a whole. But I think O'Connell should be indebted to you for all you've done for them. I think you've been a great councillor as well. Councillor Lyon, I've had the pleasure of serving with you on the Streetscape Committee, and your knowledge of plants and what we should do to beautify this town, I think, is an inspiration to us all. And I fully appreciate all the efforts you've done in those and your great knowledge of what we should be doing to do that. And your contribution, especially in that area, has been fantastic for this council. I only hope that we can move forward and finally create your ultimate vision for this town. Don Capel. I've had the great pleasure of not only serving on this council with Don, who is a person of abundant common sense, and I've also had the great pleasure of serving with him on the Upper Macquarie County Council, and it has been a true pleasure. It really has. A fellow grazier, but also always can see through the issues and find out and facilitate a resolution. It's been fantastic to serve with you. And Madam Mayor, may I say, I have never seen a harder working mayor. You have been fantastic. You're at every function, you're at every event, and how you get it done, I don't know. I know some accuse me of not sleeping, but I'm sure you don't sleep.
I don't have sheep.
But you do, you have represented this community very well as mayor and formerly as a councillor. And I think that this community of Oberon must be forever indebted for your efforts and your work that has been so selfless and the time you have committed to this community. So I think councillors all, I've only been on for one term, but one of the things that I think has been fantastic about this council, and maybe I wouldn't say I would compare it to some of our councils around, is that we are not political. We're not fractious. We're unified. We respect each other. We all get together, shake our hands and have a laugh at the end of the meeting. You know, we don't always get our way, but it doesn't matter. We're all committed to do what we believe is correct for this community, absolutely committed. And we do that, I think. We have done it very well in this term, and I can only hope that the council going forward in the new term, whoever they may be, can carry that forward. I think as a council and the respect we have showed for each other and the way we have conducted ourselves, albeit that our meetings are somewhat quite long, is probably an example to other councils in this state. I don't think there'd be a more unified body. It doesn't matter what our politics, it doesn't matter what our thinking. We aren't factional. We all vote individually for what we believe is the correct on each particular issue. So, Madam Mayor, I'm very, very happy to second this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any other comment on this recommendation, Councillor?
Could I
Councillor
respond,
Crackle?
please, Madam Mayor? Thank you for the kind words. It has been great. Councillor McKibben, yes, summed up a lot of the things that I would say, and I think there's nothing more boring than going to a meeting where everybody agrees with each other. But the wonderful thing about this council is that we have our say. We generally come to a consensus, and then at the end of the meeting, we go and have a glass of wine and a cold Chinese, and as if we had nothing's happened. And I think this is really a great thing about this council, and I just hope that the councils, the next councils, the same, and the ongoing councils are the same again. Yeah, thank you for all the kind words. I'm sorry that I'm not standing, and I've said to a few people that I think I would be a better councillor with another term, because we spent half of this term learning how it all works, and I wish the council well.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lyon?
Thank you. Thank you to those councillors that said those kind words. I'd just like to say that after a 40-year break from being on council, I can notice massive improvements in the way the council is run. I can now say that I'm very, very proud to belong to the Oberon community. And I wish the new councillors that are coming on board and all the staff that have worked so hard over the last 4 years, all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lyon. Is there any other comment here, councillors? Councillor Gibbons?
Can you hear me or not?
Councillor?
Can't hear me. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Councillor, we can.
Oh, great. I just like to thank you all for the friendships that I've made and the great knowledge that has been floating around that room. I've learned so much from you all. So thanks for the journey. Thanks for the ride.
Thank you, Councillor Gibbons. Councillor Doney?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The very kind words from all commentators, other fellow councillors. I feel the opportunity to have done this has been a privilege. As I too continue to look at the performance of other councils, the nature of the meetings, the nature of their debates, and the nature of their relationships, then I think we can hold our heads up very high as a council that is committed primarily to its community. It's been a pleasure. If I had another 2 lives, I'd keep going. And thank you for your forbearance, and I wish you all the very best.
Thank you, Councillor. I would also like to thank everybody for their very, very kind words. And the only thing that's really left for me to say, because I think everybody said it all, is to thank all councillors for their support, and particularly the staff for their support. Because without the staff support, we wouldn't be able to be the cohesive council that we are. So thank you all very much. And I'll now put the recommendation all in. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Page 11, councillors, item 2, exempt development. Motion is that Oberon Council adopt a code of planning practice that machinery and fodder storage sheds be classed as exempt in the rural R1 zoned areas of Oberon Council local government area, as it be considered auxiliary to farming requirements. A mover, please, councillors. Councillor McCarthy, and a seconder, please. Councillor McKibben. Ask Councillor McCarthy to speak to his recommendation. I would just like a clarification. I think for this to pass, it has to go before the state, I believe, and I'm going to ask the Director of Planning to just outline how this could or couldn't work before we then discuss the recommendation. So if I could go to the Director.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through the Chair. The planning hierarchy in New South Wales starts off with the, as you're aware, the Environment Planning Assessment Act, followed by the State Environmental Planning Policies, Council's Land Use Strategy, Local Environment Plan, and DCP, Development Control Plan. Currently, the farm buildings identified as machinery and fodder sheds would be contained within the exempt complying development, State Environment Planning Policy. Council, when that was brought in by the state government in 2009, Council adopted that as the standard across in New South Wales, took that on board. Farm buildings are currently exempt development up to 200 metres squared. There are other development standards. So to change the requirements in Oberon from the state environment planning policy would need to form part of Council's land use strategy and review, which is proposed to commence next year. The review of the LEP, followed by the DCP. So to bring that in line would need to be considered as part of those changes moving forward, and to be considered by the community and council. The only current council in New South Wales that does not follow the current exempt and confined development code is Bathurst, and there'll be a long process to take changes to the Minister of Planning, but that would form part of our review that would commence next year.
Councillor McCarthy, did you wish to speak to this recommendation?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I've been doing some research for a long time on this. I agree with what Damien said, but you've got to start the change sooner or later. And I think we've got to get off the ministerial people and get this changed. An example of this is recently it took through the portal 3 months to get a shed approved. 3 months. There's an existing shed there. When the staff member of Oberon Council done a Google, why wasn't that considered to be an existing shed replacement and exempt? What we need to do, these people don't build big sheds bigger than 200 square metres because they want to be smart with council or something like that. They need them for the size of their activity of their business. Now, we had it up to 300 square metres as our exempt compliant. But one of the people that worked as a consultant for us talked us and recommended to the council that we stay with the 200 square metres. Bathurst fought for it and they maintained it. They fought against the state government and they keep it up to the 300. So if you want a 300 square metre shed, you lodge an exempt and compliant form in Bathurst. So long as your property fits the criteria, which is it's done on a land base, not an RU1. It's done on a land base. In other words, if you've got more than 4 hectares, you can have a certain size shed. If you've got more than a certain land, you go bigger. I know I'm going to lose this one, but you've got to start somewhere, and we need to shake the tree and get this improved. I was here when that member from the state government come along and said, oh, we're going to make the sheds 200 square metres exempt. We will already have 3. And he took something away from us. He's been replaced about 3 times over. We've got to get down to the grassroots and get these approved. There's people need sheds for grain storage now, seeing that you can't get a container to send grain overseas. You can't get a silo, things like that. These are things that are happening all the time, and our state government aren't addressing the problem. But we've got to start somewhere and make these sheds more easier to put up, and what's saying. And like in one of my submissions here, we have large farming operations that have put sheds up. I've watched the thing. There's no DA's been submitted for them, and nothing happens. So, you know, a lot of people want to do the right thing, but some of the bigger companies who operate here and Moree and places like that, they put bigger sheds up and think nothing of it. And we don't say boo to them. So anyway, I think we've got to start this action rolling somewhere in the state government and get sheds exempt that fit on the rural land as I've submitted. Thank you.
Councillor McKibben, do you wish to speak to this?
Oh, thank you, Madam. Listen, I appreciate what the Director of Planning has said, and as I've seconded this, I can't propose an amendment if I wasn't, I don't think. No. If I was another councillor, I was proposing an amendment to suggest that this be considered as part of the LEP and DEP next year, when it's reviewed next year. And I'd be also asking the Director of Planning if we could consider what Bathurst introduced, or one I think it was Bathurst, the sliding scale. As I think Councillor McCarthy said, you've got this size, you can have up to this size. The bigger the property, the bigger the shed you're allowed, which seems absolutely suitable for me, because we don't want someone with 4 hectares having a 300 metre square shed. I understand that. So I'm suggesting a sliding scale. As I said, I can't suggest this as I'm seconded, but another member of council might at least propose an amendment that be considered.
Councillor Keller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to propose an amendment that we defer this proposal to the next term of council and be part of the land use strategy review, bearing in mind, including the sliding scales used by Bathurst.
Or other times.
So you defer this proposal to the next term of the proposal to the next term of council. What was after that, councillor?
Including consideration of the sliding scales involved as used by Bathurst. And other options as
did you leave out the bit about considering it to the planning?
Oh, sorry.
You got that?
I think you've got this is in relation to machinery and fodder storage sheds, so you've got to get that somewhere in there, because this is going to be thrown out.
Well,
when the minute secretary has got that down, we'll put it up. And so the amendment as it sits there is that Oberon Council adopt.
Sorry, I'm just trying to share.
No worries. Right, Sharon. That the proposal be deferred until the next term of council, and that it form part of the
land use strategy review.
Sorry, Sean, I can't see it. Part of the LEP review, and that the proposal include consideration of a sliding scale for development of machinery and fodder sheds on a sliding scale. You probably don't need sliding scale.
If I don't want to beat Damien to it, shouldn't it be Billy West? Yeah.
Can we just say review of your strategic planning processes or strategic planning documents?
Yeah,
Yeah.
strategic planning document.
You like-
Strategic planning documents.
Um,
Of councils,
Strategic
strategic
planning
planning
documents.
documents.
You happy with that, Councillor Kellum? Do I have a seconder?
I'll be happy to second
Councillor
that.
Capel. Councillor Kellum, do you wish to speak to the
Nothing further,
Amendment?
Madam Mayor.
Councillor Cable, do you wish to speak to the amendment?
No, maybe to say that this is the obvious way to go for it to be considered properly by the new council.
Is there any other comment on the amendment, councillors? Right, that's all right. I'm putting the amendment, councillors, that the proposal be deferred until the next term of council and that it form part of the strategic council's strategic planning documents, and that the proposal include consideration of, thank you, of the sliding scale for development of machinery and fodder sheds. All in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you. The amendment now becomes a motion. All in favour of the motion? The motion's carried. Thank you, councillors. Councillor and delegate reports. Item 1101, Upper Macquarie County Council meeting, 15th of October 2021. I will note that the author of this report is Councillor Capel, not Councillor McKibben as stated. And the recommendation is that the report item 1101 is received as information. Can I have someone to move this, please? Councillor Capel, thank you, and a seconder. Councillor McKibben, thank you. Do you wish to speak to this, Councillor Capel?
I think it's covered there. As I said there, the main, well, probably the most important business of the day was accepting the resignation of the general manager of the county council, who will be most sorely missed by the council. He's done a terrific job really putting it on its feet, and he'll be greatly missed. We knew that he wasn't going to be staying for a long time when he took the position on, but still very sorry to see him go. Yeah, it's all there. It was a fairly short meeting.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McKibben, did you wish to speak?
No, I just reiterate Councillor Capel's comments.
Any other
We're now
comments?
looking for a new general manager.
Thank you. Any other comments, councillors? With the recommendation, all in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you. Page 13, councillors, item 1102, Country Mayors Association meeting, 5th of November 2021. The recommendation is that the report item is received and noted. Can I have a mover, please, councillors? Councillor McCarthy and a seconder, please. Councillor Capel, thank you. You wish to speak to the recommendation, Councillor McCarthy?
Pretty straightforward report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Capel.
No, I was a little bit confused, Madam Mayor, about the dates on the minutes. 2015 and a few times
2015. Where is that, Councillor?
Page 16.
on page 16.
So that's the AGM. 15. Yeah, that's
Yeah, and then on the next page 19, resolved that the mayors of the following councils form the executive association for the 14-15 year. I assume that that's a mistake with a template.
I'm not really quite sure. We get these directly from the country mayors.
Yeah.
I
Their
note.
mistake.
I note that.
Other than that, nothing to add.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kidden.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I was a little bit confused as to the attached minutes too. I just wonder whether the comment at the bottom of page 13 actually relates to a previous set of minutes. It should be
Does it relates to the May
May
meeting?
minutes, so it could be
It's
taken out.
of the general meeting, not the AGM, no, the general meeting, May meeting. that was reported to the June council meeting.
That's right, so should it be taken out here?
Well, it's a summary of the resolutions.
Well, it's not, because it talks.
Well, it is a summary of the resolutions, councillor, because from the previous minutes, they do note at the meeting what they've done on the priority projects, and that's what that is. However, this has been a copy paste, I believe, and that is how it appears in the minutes. And I understand.
It's all a little bit confusing.
Yes, I do understand that.
I was going, and then I was just getting, probably me. Right, I'm happy with it if everyone else is happy with it.
Thank you. Any other comments here, councillors? I'm putting the recommendation, all in favour. Carrie, thank you. Councillors, no, page 40. 1103 Rural Fire Service. The recommendation is report item 11 be received and noted. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McCarthy, and a seconder, please. Councillor Keller. Councillor McCarthy, do you wish to speak to this recommendation?
Yes, Madam Mayor, the first paragraph is pretty straightforward. The captains are going to write to the manager of Chifley Lithgow Zone. I'm just requesting the second part that Oberon Council write to the Commissioner and point out that the Premier citation and caps haven't been all placed, supplied. I spoke to Annette down at Lithgow, and she was going to get back to me today, and there's no return call. And I spoke to Brett Taylor today, and he wasn't aware that they all weren't filled. I double checked with Jeff Ryan over at Rockley, and his team haven't all got theirs. So it's a pretty poor effort for someone that's given a lot of voluntary labour. So I think to sort of half blame the COVID, I can't see you can blame COVID from a citation and a cap. But anyway, I just request that the Oberon Council write a letter to the Commissioner pointing out that this hasn't been done, fulfilled.
I'm happy to do that, Councillor McCarthy. I'm trying to find out the number of people that were missed and who they were. If I can't find that out, I'll write a more general letter.
Okay, Brett Taylor indicated that he had all the names that attended, but he doesn't know all the ones that aren't fulfilled, and that's the hard part, because Neil has some citations and caps.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want to give them out because some of
I've spoken to Neil.
Yeah.
I'll certainly write a letter.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
not a problem. Councillor Killam, did you wish to speak to this?
No, Madam Mayor.
Any other comments, councillors? For the recommendation, all in favour? Very, thank you. Page 41, councillors, item committee reports, item 1201. CTA Audit Risk and Improvement Committee is a recommendation in two parts, that the report item 1201 be received as information, and that the Central Tablelands Alliance Audit Risk and Improvement Committee 2020-21 annual report be received and noted. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Kellam, and a second to Councillor McKibben. Councillor Kellam, do you wish to speak to this report?
Yes, Madam Mayor, this was the last ARIC meeting of this term, and will probably be the last ARIC meeting in the current arrangements, where we partner with Lithgow and share the three independent auditors. It is likely that we will go to we will be exploring, I suspect, an ARIC based upon a joint organisation model. Make use of the resources there. A number of things were discussed there, including a number of audits which have been undertaken. I think one of the more interesting parts is the depreciation, amortization, impairment, which was up 64%. And of course, what that comes from is not anything except natural disasters, and the fact that with all the extra infrastructure we've generated in the last 12 months, extra infrastructure means a lot more depreciation comes with it, and that's life in an accountancy. do in the next iteration of the ARIC is make sure that we have a set of terms of reference that the ARIC sticks to. The independent members this time were a little bit very focused on the financials and not on performance audits. And I think there needs to be a better balance there between the two. But that's in the past now, and we're moving on into the future. And it'll be a different organisation come next year.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kim, did you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I suppose the first thing I was wondering, it's a question for here or maybe later when we consider the unaudited financial statements. The extension of time for the lodgement of the accounts, I think it was till the audit accounts at the end of November 2021, is that correct? Why was that necessitated? Just because we had staff issues? Or was it because ARIC or our auditor hadn't had time to consider them properly?
I know through the chair, the extension of time was on the back of COVID related as well as staff matters that we went through in the preparation of the documents.
And obviously we've had some changes that we received last night, I think it was, to the unaudited financial accounts, which seem to be as a result of discussions between ARIC and our external auditors. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Trying to finesse depreciation and a number of other issues. I was surprised that with the expertise on our ARIC that they didn't pick some of those up. But that's a question.
Through the chair, the ARIC committee members dealt with the information that they had before them.
Right.
In fact, it was raised by our external auditor, the issues that we were addressing. So it was raised at that point in time, and that's where the investigation started in terms of trying to account for the amortization and depreciation in the right process, or in a different process that we had undertaken it. And that's where the new outcomes have been provided to council.
Right. So with the increase in depreciation, I know we foreshadowed this last year because of our increased asset values and the amount of grants we've got, meaning that we've got more assets to depreciate. Do we have a projection how that's likely to affect our accounts going forward after this year? I mean, it's going to have an effect, and we were concerned about it this year, and that it may send us into the red because of, or into a loss, sorry, because of the amount of depreciation.
Through the chair,
Or if we
I think that this is going to have an impact purely on the basis of the amount of grant funding that we're achieving and what we're doing. Yeah, absolutely.
The sports complex, the community hub, three big projects there that are going to come on this year, which are sizable projects. So the problem is going to be exacerbated again next year.
Through the chair, I think that the role of depreciation in accounting standards is going to be an ongoing challenge for not only this council, but for all councils. There is a lot of talk in local government governance circles around how councils in fact deal with depreciation, and how that this book entry that we talk about has the opportunity to be accounted for differently and look at options around doing that. So it's a conversation that is continuing, and I think that the state is aware of it, and certainly the audit office is aware of these challenges that local government have in this space.
So we may be, in the corporate world, you have a term called EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation. Maybe the state government would have to consider something like that. I know tax doesn't apply in this, but it is a corporate term that is used.
And they are seriously considering how this needs to be dealt with.
Yeah. Right. Okay, fine. Thank you. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
You make a very good point.
Thank you, councillor. Is there any other comments, councillors, on this one?
Madam Mayor, if I
Yep.
could.
Yep.
Councillor Keller made some comments about the ongoing ARIC and how it sits. I'll just add a little bit more to that, that we are no longer in the dark about how an ARIC should operate, with some guidelines that have been put out by the Office of Local Government. And the reason that we'll be looking to review that is purely based on the requirements of that guideline that the LG has put out in terms of how they want to see an ARIC operate. So it's just another reason that we move towards a different type of.
Is that being circulated?
Yeah,
It has.
yep. I'm happy to circulate it again through the American.
Oh, was it the original one circulated months ago?
Yes.
Ah, I think, yes, I think I know.
It's just the original one was in draft form. Now it's been
Accepted.
accepted.
Oh, it's been, okay. Yeah, otherwise it might be good to see it.
Yeah, that's my whole just wanted that.
Any other comments, councillors? I'm putting the recommendation, all in favour. Carrie, thank you. Page 4, councillors, reports for decision, item 1301. Oberon water treatment plant replacement membrane bioreactor filtration filters, T2021/16. There's a recommendation in two parts that council nominate the selective tendering method as prescribed in accordance with clause 166(b) of the Local Government Regulation 2005 for the supply and installation of new water treatment filters at the Oberon water treatment plant, tender T2021/16. And that a further report be presented to council's February 2022 ordinary meeting at the conclusion of the tendering period for resolution of preferred contractor. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McKibben and Councillor Cagle. Councillor McKibben, do you wish to speak to this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, this is an essential item. My only concern is that the costs of this plus the costs of the clean out of the pipes are going to have a significant effect on our water fund. Am I correct? Because we've already just accepted it. I think it's now, yes, it's now common knowledge, that part, accepted a tender for obviously cleaning our pipes out. If I can put it in those raw words. And this has obviously got an expense that is envisaged will exceed 250,000. Or could exceed 250,000. So those two together, I can't remember what the cost of the pipes was, but we're probably looking at a 400,000 plus hit to our water fund. It's a big hit. But we have no option, so we have to move ahead. And we were hoping, obviously, that some of the water fund assets may be available for, wasn't the sewage treatment plant we considered at one stage. Anyway, that's fine. We've got no option.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Cagle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, it is a big hit, but as Councillor McKibben said, we have no option. We committed funding to this in the operational plan. The filters need replacing. They're going to be expensive. Staff have undertaken significant research and found out the best replacement methods, and that's it. Has to be done.
Councillor, is there any other comment? Councillor Donny.
Question through you, Madam Mayor. I read this says the existing membranes have been operational since 2013. With the issues about our water over recent times, is 2013, does that mean 7 to 8 years is the normal life expectancy of such a piece of infrastructure? Through you?
Yeah, through the chair, yeah, it's certainly the term. I've been at a proactive sense no more than probably 10 years. It's probably the maximum life at this stage in terms of the, I suppose, the variable conditions that we've gone through with the raw water has had an impact. And again, they are challenged with pre-chlorinated water from Water New South Wales, which does make them a bit more susceptible to the life of the actual asset. So we have, in the long-term financial planning, have strategically put money aside for this replacement. So whilst it is a lot of money, it's certainly something that we expected to undertake at this particular time of its life.
With that, Tony, thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Any other comments, councillors? Councillor
Just a
McCarthy?
clarification, so we have been putting money away for these membranes or not?
Yeah, through the chair, yeah, certainly money was put away proportionally last year
Okay.
in anticipation of combining with additional funding in this financial year to complete this work.
So, okay, so we haven't been putting it away over a period of 10 years or whatever, so we don't get a big hit like this at once.
Yeah, through the chair, certainly the water fund is certainly accumulating, but yeah, it's again, it is strategically viewed at every 10 years or thereabouts that this is going to be required. So money has to be put aside as part of that long-term financial planning, water planning.
What I'm getting at, if say, should we be putting 15,000 away into a fund each year to facilitate it, so we don't have the 150,000?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that go into a normal maintenance
So again,
section of the fund?
yeah, through the chair, so money does accumulate within the water fund in reserves, and it is proportionally banked upon in terms of that when that asset does come due. Yes, the money is accounted for, even though, as I say again, last financial year, putting that toward combining with additional funding for this financial year was the term, not bringing the project forward any sooner, but again, recognising that it is quite a large quantity of money that the council is going to be able to afford.
Through the chair, there was no significant increase in water rates to cater for this. It had been catered for over a period of time.
What I'm getting at is, should we not be putting $15,000 away each year for the membranes only? Period. Because when this was designed, we elected to go with that recommendation of these membranes, and I thought in the past the staff had actually changed the membranes over when Mr. Robbins was here, and it's a pretty laborious job. And yeah, anyway, I see where it's been required that the contractor be provided, but shouldn't be, this will be an ongoing thing that should be put away for that specific thing, not just in your water fund, for that specific use.
Through the chair, that's where you do fund it from.
I realise that.
So it's a project within the water fund. Yes, you're right. So we program that for each 10 years.
So when you program how much money you put across to the water fund, I understand what Councillor McCarthy is saying. It's inclusive of these replacements.
Correct.
So it is not a specific 15,000 put somewhere different for this specific project. It goes into the maintenance fund, which encompasses the future maintenance needs of the plant.
Correct.
Is that correct?
It's in restricted reserves.
Yeah.
Restricted reserves, yeah. Any other comments, councillors? All right, if we fly here.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I was just, I was looking at page 173 and 171, 173 of the financial accounts. And I was just following on from Councillor McCarthy's, I was just trying to find, noting the total current assets of the fund of 2.805 million. No reference to any restrictions as far as I can see. Inside fund, Mr.
The water fund is dedicated to restricted fund.
It is dedicated to restricted fund. Yes, that's what I mean. There's 2.8 million there, but there's no actual. Sometimes you have a restrict. There's no breakdown of what's restricted and what's. The water fund is restricted to be used for the water only.
Yeah.
But within that,
Yeah,
there's
I
nothing
understand.
to say. There's no restricted fund within the water fund to say that much is restricted
For
for
maintenance.
maintenance equipment or whatever. No, there's not a specific saying that this much amount is restricted to maintenance. So Councillor McCarthy is right to that degree.
Yeah,
We understand that.
I'm putting the recommendation, councillors, all in favour? Carried, thank you. Page 50, councillors, item 1302, delegation for mayoral duties. The recommendation is that council delegate to Mrs. Kathy Sadgewitz the authority to carry out civic and ceremonial functions of the mayoral office between election day and the holding of the mayoral election after the local government election. Do I have a mover for that, please? Councillor McKechnie and Councillor Doney, thank you. Councillor McKechnie, do you wish to speak to this?
Not really. I don't think to be anyone better qualified to do it.
Councillor Donny, did you wish to speak to this?
Only to note, Madam Mayor, that it, it's a result of a recent change. And that, only mirror Councillor McKechnie's wish that it's you and not him.
Thank you. Any other comments, councillor? Councillor, no. I'll put the recommendation. Sorry, councillor.
Just ready to vote.
Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Can you vote for your own appointment, Madam? No, it's Mrs. Satchel. Sorry, I think I have a conflict of interest there, Madam Mayor.
No, not as Mrs. as Mayor. Item 1303, councillor partner agreement, Service New South Wales for Business. The recommendation is that council delegates authority to the general manager to enter into a partnership agreement with Service New South Wales. Can I have a mover, Councillor McKibben, and a seconder, please? Councillor Kellam, thank you. Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've read through this and it seems appropriate for circumstances. This is normal course of business that we've been conducting, so it's something new than what we're all doing. So I'm quite happy to move this recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Kellam. do you wish to
Nothing further to add. I'm happy with the resolution.
Thank you. Any other comments, councillors?
Just, Madam Mayor, it's good to see the opportunities through Service New South Wales expanding through the council offices. I think it's been a great benefit to the community, the whole range.
Any other comments from here, councillors? I'll put the recommendation. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Page 53, councillors. Item 1304, end of term report 2019 to 21 community strategic plan. There is a change there in the recommendation. It should read 2019 to 2021, not 22, as in the comment. So I'll put the recommendation that council endorse. I'll propose the recommendation that council endorse the end of term report for the 2019-21 reporting period. If I can get a mover, please, Councillor McKibben, and a seconder, please. Councillor Kellam, thank you. Councillor McKibben, do you wish to speak to this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did read the end of term report the early hours of the morning, and I found it a very thorough report. So I commend it. I obviously commend this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kellam.
Excellent report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Nothing further to add.
Right. Any other comments, councillors? I'll put the recommendation. All in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Page 54, councillors. Item 1305, 2020-21 annual report. The recommendation is in three parts. That council receive the annual report for the year ending 30th of June 2021 as information. That council approve and upload the annual report onto Oberon Council's website by the 30th of November 2021, and that council notify the Office of Local Government that the annual report is on Oberon Council's website, and provide a copy of the annual report to the Minister in accordance with section 426(5) of the Local Government Act 1993. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Capel, and a seconder, please. Councillor Kellam, thank you. Councillor Capel, did you wish to speak to this one?
I need to say that yeah, it's what we do. It's a very good report. I've read through them. Look good to me.
Councillor Kellam, anything to add? Any other comments here, Councillor McKibben?
The only thing I have is I take it the audit of the financial statements that will be attached to this are the finally approved ones, not the unaudited ones that we're currently reviewing, which are the attachment.
Through the chair, that will be correct, which is why it has to be up by the 30th of November 2021.
Right, so when's this got to be submitted? By the 30th of November, with the attached financials. The only thing I just wondered, and this may be provocative, but in the diagram on page 43, that's page 6 of 40 of the annual report in the attachments down there.
Can we give those page references again?
Sorry? It's the organisational structure in the annual report. Do we need to delineate here that the strategic issues, that is the way, and for operational, it actually starts as the general manager and works down, because we don't have any.
Through the chair, the annual report just gives an overarching commitment to your community to say the community's first and then.
That's right. But is the organisation,
function.
is the organisational structure on that page 43 commit? Because we have to look at strategic vis-a-vis operational issues. And councillors are not really in that chain for operational issues that I've been advised.
But we are part of the organisation.
Yes, but there should be two streams, strategic, which that would follow that, and operational, which would be different. I'm always told that we don't have any responsibility for operations.
Okay.
Through the chair, we can delineate that through a process. If council sees
The
fit.
new council will be doing a review of the community strategic plan. It can be done then.
Okay, you're happy with that? Yeah.
Not happy with that?
I said I'm okay if that's what
Yeah.
the way forward.
Any other comments here, councillors? Put the recommendation in 3 parts, all in favour? Carried, thank you. Page 59, councillors, item 1306, town improvement project budget reallocation. The recommendation is that council approve the reallocation of $70,000 from the Cook Park awning extension to the Common to cover the cost of proposed projects by the Common Working Party. That council note the new reporting format for monthly town improvement expenditure. A mover, please, councillors. Councillor Kellam, the seconder. Councillor Donny, thank you. Councillor Kellam, do you wish to speak to this?
Briefly, Madam Mayor, the $70,000 from Cook Park awning extension has ground to a halt due to ability to reach a boundary settlement. I think is probably the best way of putting it, and I think it's very appropriate to reallocate that money to the common.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Donny, do you wish to speak to this one?
Only to say, Madam Mayor, we've put a lot of time and effort into coming to target and understand our use of town improvement funds, and I think we do a very good job of it.
Thank you, councillor. Any other comments? Councillor McCarthy.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I disagree with the reallocation of the money. I think with a bit more effort, we can do a redesign, put the post out behind the curb where the power pole is and the rest of it, and do a totally different structure so we don't interfere with the building that is in front of it. The building in front of it is not heritage listed, and I'm really disappointed that this has gone on for so long, in respect that I was privy to the design that went out to our engineering firm, and it showed the original plans for these posts out the front, which were round. Now, the person that done these ones was Mr. Satoma, and he said to Lee Robbins at the time, if you do them in box section, we'll reduce the cost. But the plan went out to this engineering firm, was still the old round pipe which scalloped the braces, really expensive. So we've never gone and got the cost properly. What I think we should do is retain the money, give the people an Oberon somewhere where they can walk along that footpath without slipping over the snow and ice in the winter, and protect them from the rain. We haven't been able to come up with an agreement with the people that own the premises, but we step away from their getting close to their property and actually do the awning with a cantilever off the curb and gutter. And I think to prop up the shortfall, I'm all for propping up the shortfall in the common, but there are avenues. We have $23 million in money out there. We've just got to search a bit harder to find some money that can prop that shortfall up. And one of the things when I was reading through the common report, chap that give the engineering report to do the stone wall is allowed 5,000 for an engineer, and then we've allowed 5,000 for an engineer. It's a duplication. For there's 5,000 we can save straight on one project down there with that wall. So I think within council, if we try a bit harder, we can facilitate the shortfall and we can retain the $70,000 for the awning and get on with that awning and get it completed.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Is there any other comment on this one, Councillor McKechnie?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to see the awning go ahead. It's a gap in the street there where there's no protection from the snow and frosty, slippery surfaces. It's in an area where there's a lot of pedestrian traffic to the park and to the amenities, butcher shop and things like that. So that I think there's a good case for continuing the awning through, so that there's no gap there. I agree with Councillor McCarthy. I think if we looked at it a little bit harder, we could certainly find a way to overcome the landholder and boundary issues. A virtual mirror or simple, almost mirror reverse of what's there on the existing bit from the shop down to the baker shop down to the toilet block, and move the posts out to the curb and gutter side would more or less do the job, I think, if we use the right construction materials with the right strength. So I don't think we're looking hard enough. You know, we're just saying it's too hard. It's not too hard. We've got the wrong people looking at it if we are. We've got plenty of engineers in town, plenty of engineering firms in town that can do that. I just can't see why we're saying it's too hard. It's not too hard. It's fairly easy, and I'd be surprised if there's not something left over from the 70,000. Seems an awful lot for what we're going to get there, I think. So I'm against moving the money from this. I'm not against the work at the Common, I'm all for it, but I'm against moving it from this to the Common project. I think this needs to be done. It's on the southern side, on the shady side of the street. That's, you know, we get complaints all the time about the slipperiness and what we're doing about the paving and making it safe for pedestrians. And we've got this yawning gap there that we do nothing about because we think it's too hard. Well, I can tell you, I've seen engineers design a lot more harder things than that. It's not too hard. It's absolutely ridiculous that we're not doing it. School technical students could design that.
Thank you, Councillor. I believe the director would like to.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to respond about the technicality, and I totally agree that it's not a difficult project by all means, and certainly from an engineering functionality can be done. The main concern is with the owner, I suppose, in terms of the aesthetic nature of the building and what impacts it may have. Is there concerns coming up with a suitable design that will not impost, I suppose, on the frontage of the building? Is the real concern that has been raised by the owners. So that in itself, I'm not quite sure about the historic nature. That'd be something that I need to get clarified, but the proponent is happy to work with council and not opposed to putting something there, but just what that structure looks like. And it can be done by a reverse mode of the rear of the curb, perhaps in relation to the existing utility that runs parallel on the footpath adjacent to the property boundary. So it's not that it can't be done, it's just that complex discussion at the minute of striking in a happy medium in an agreement. I think that's where we're at with that.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, Councillor. If we don't move this money, what other options are there to find the $70,000 required to complete the projects that we've already resolved to do in the Common?
Through the chair, if you don't find money to, and remember this money is a transfer between your town improvement fund. It's not finding money from somewhere else. It was the transfer that the Common Working Party talked about at the last meeting. If you don't move the fund, you're going to be short in one of your projects that you've prioritised under the Common working party commitments.
And that would mean that that project or a project would not be done.
Would not be complete in this year. Yeah,
In
that's
this year.
correct.
Thank you, Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I foreshadow an amendment that and the concept would be that we'd approve the relocation of these funds. However, I would be foreshadowing that we have a point 3 that council, through the Technical Services Director, further investigate the proposal for the awning extension, for the footpath awning extension, and come back to council with a proposal that would solve the problem and is acceptable to the building owner.
Timeline on that?
If you could, yes, I would be talking about February next year. March next year, maybe. And we would then have time to consider it for fun. And in doing that, he also provides to us a revised pricing of what he thinks it will cost. But I think we give Technical Service Director till March because to come back with that report. So that would be, I'm not changing 1 or 2, I'm adding a 3.
You're adding 3,
So I will put that formally as a proposed amendment.
okay. Have you got that, Shannon? When you do, can we say, please, and I could ask for a second. So councillors, the amendment is adding a point 3 that council further investigate the proposal for the Cook Park awning extension and provide a proposal that would solve the problem and is acceptable to the owner of the adjacent property to be provided by March 2022. Is that your amendment, councillor?
Yes.
Design.
Yes, a design, provide a design. That would solve, that is maybe would address the support issue. I suppose it's the support.
I think the issues.
The issues will be
cover it.
right and is acceptable to the owner of the adjacent property. Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Make it simple and I'll second
Do you have a second, councillor Capel? Any discussion on the amendment, councillor Capel? Did you wish to comment on that?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. That, I can understand why we need money to finish off the project at the Common. However, that is an extraordinarily dangerous area up there for a large part of the winter. We go up there and throw a bit of salt on it, and that has 2 effects. It marginally makes it a bit less slippery, and it deteriorates the paving even more quickly than it's deteriorating anyway. Yeah, so I think it's some urgency that needs to be addressed up there because it is very dangerous.
Thank you, councillor. Is there any other comment on the councillor Kelly?
Madam Mayor, I think what we've got here is 2 diametrically opposed parts of the resolution. We're approving a reallocation of $70,000, and then we're saying further investigation. They're mutually exclusive. I'm happy that we in fact take out the first paragraph, which is about reallocation of the money, and leave just 2 and 3, and renumber 1 and 2 as it could be. But we can't allocate reallocate $70,000 and do a further investigation because the money's already gone.
Well, the money could be taken then from somewhere else once we get it, a plan. I think that's the intent.
And I did say we get a revised pricing. I think that was the only issue that's missing. We get a revised pricing for that proposal from so that we can actually make a new allocation, which would then be more aptly.
I think Mr. Spinell has solved the problem by putting defer in there. So we stop the reallocation, we keep the money there, we note the new reporting format, and we do a further investigation. So that now works with one word changed.
Through the chair, what that will do is stop the project in the common.
That's right.
You can't, I think
You can reallocate.
we should be able to approve, spend the 70 grand down there
I agree.
and then investigate the proposal up here on the footpath and
Come back
find
in
the
March.
money from somewhere.
I agree.
I don't think it's.
And in a resolution, like where the money's going to come from.
Through
when
the
it
chair,
comes back,
through that
we will.
resolution would be the March 22
Yeah.
where you would
Okay.
that
determine
would be
where it
done.
comes from.
Is there any other comment on the the amendment as it sits there, councillors? Councillor McKechnie?
Madam Mayor, should we add something there that says in a report back to council, including costing and funding sources by 2022?
I'm happy with that, Madam Mayor.
That'd be too specific. Leave it in broad.
Just I'm talking about design. Probably need design costing.
Design and costing.
Yeah, that would cover it, councillor McKechnie?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah.
And I think my inference, the general manager would identify a funding source.
Councillor Gibbon and councillor Capel, happy with that?
Sorry, we've got by and two.
Yeah.
So we either have by council, to council by March 31st. Happy with that.
Councillor Capel? Any other comments here, councillors?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I need an understanding. Last year we voted for the signs. And there was a set amount of money. We got a grant, it was just short of 200,000 on it. All of a sudden we've completed the sign project because we didn't have enough money to complete it. So we found the money in this financial year, didn't we?
I think we had money out of it.
But wasn't it had to be spent in the last financial year? There was a requirement to spend it by a certain time.
Through the chair, the signs project was council secured that money through a grant fund.
Yep.
With 5 other projects.
Yep.
The signage fund has an add-on that council's approved a plan around how it will continue to roll out these projects. And there was a funding wasn't a shortfall in the funding. There was a unspent contribution with the other grant funds that council contributed to the signage fund to do more than what they originally resolved to do.
Because it was all under the one funding agreement, you could interplay the.
Okay, all right, I'll play the game. So I just see this thing as what we're talking about. If we have an abnormality or something goes wrong, we can find the money to fix it. Whether it be an engineering abnormality or something like that. In here, we're talking about a shortfall of funds to keep the funds there for the Cook Park awning. Surely goodness, with $23 million sitting there, we should be able to find some money to top up the common fund, the TI fund, facilitate what we've budgeted for this year.
I think
Sorry,
that,
but
that's okay, councillor. I think that by proceeding with the common projects and coming back with a proper design and report to council when the money can then be found is exactly what you're talking about. just maybe in a different sequence.
Well, if we'd have budgeted X amount for the shade sales down there in a budget, not a grant, and then we found out that the footings were crooked, we'd have found the money like we have. And that's what I'm getting at. Somewhere along the line, for that 23 million sitting there, there's enough funds there to do both projects. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take that as a comment, Councillor McCarthy, and I'm going to put the amendment in 3 parts. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. The amendment now becomes motion. All in favour of the motion? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. 61, councillors, item 1307, stormwater drainage improvements, Dart Street, Oberon. There's a recommendation in 2 parts that council proceed to undertake drainage rectification works and construct new drainage infrastructure and curb and gutter on both sides of Dart Street from Earl Street to the end. That council fund these works during the 2021-22 financial year and transfer funds from section 711 urban development / drainage contributions in the amount of up to $91,850 to complete these urban improvement works. Can I have a mover, please? Do I have a mover, Councillor McCarthy and Councillor McKibben? Thank you. Yes, Councillor McCarthy, did you wish to speak to this one?
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have moved it. My concern is that in paragraph 2, that the work be taken on in this financial year, and with our actual works that's going on outside, I really think that that's not possible. So I hope someone puts an amendment up to defer it to the next financial year. But yeah, I think we've got enough work on it, and we're not going to get places like the Lowe's-Mount Road done. We're going to be behind with the Nernans Hill Road and things like that. That's all I'm concerned about. I think this work's got to be done in lieu of that. A lot of the water drainage goes to the end of the school and then stops and then floods. But
yeah, through the chair, certainly the only way this could be facilitated would be by external resourcing contracting to assist in bringing it to fruition if it was done this financial year. And look, again, most likely what and how we have been doing a lot of curb and guttering works does require contractual work. So it's really the decision for council whether we proceed this financial year with external resources or defer it into the next financial year. Stage.
Is there any guarantee that there'll be less infrastructure happening next financial year? I don't think so.
Yeah, through the chair, certainly there's no guarantee. Certainly, I think it's going to still continue to be quite busy. So it's yeah, look, a catch. Again, it's the necessary work that we certainly would benefit the residents down there with the ongoing control of water.
Thank you, Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Madam. Look, it's obviously necessary, just in relation to the pricing of it. Have we sought any external quotes for doing this work as part of our estimate?
Through the chair, we're going through what basically has been quoted on what we, as we know it, of the previous or current works that we're.
But we haven't got an individual quote for this one. We haven't asked them to quote it.
No, not as yet, because I certainly haven't got an endorsement from council to do so.
But how good do we think that our estimate is?
Yeah, through the chair, I'm pretty confident that that's near enough where we're going to be with regards to that construction.
Are there likely to be any unforeseen issues, latent issues that we're likely to discover that we don't know about?
Through the chair, again, we've scoped the site pretty well. I don't believe that that's the case, otherwise we would have had it in our pricing.
Right, so we're not going to get unnecessary rock or something that suddenly puts the price up. I'm just a bit wary of what happened with the sales at the Common. And
no, through the chair. So there is existing infrastructure, as I've noted in the report, that we're going to connect to. So I don't ascertain that there's going to be a problem there.
So if we did it ourselves, and I take it that probably the timing for doing it ourselves would not be this financial year or next financial year, what would be the cost savings, if any?
Through the chair, I think they'd be negligible, either way, other than material price increases that could potentially influence anything in 12-month period.
So do we have, or do we have, I think we should dry the pipes, etc., necessary for this now? Or do we have, are they on pre-order, or do we have to buy them?
Through the chair, look, certainly the lead times wouldn't be an issue, even if we had to acquire additional materials.
But the price of the concrete pipes is going up, I understand.
Yeah, like anything, steel is also, so, you know, look, it's the inflation that we, you know, certainly would be subjected to on the world stage at this period of time. Yes.
So as it's 90,000, what you'd be going up for just quotes from a few companies?
Through the chair.
150,000.
Yeah, certainly, we'd certainly have to obtain a few quotations, which would be the most appropriate way of doing it, once with our procurement policy.
Well, on the basis that I'm happy to second this one.
Councillor Gibbon, is there any other comment on this one, Councillor Donny?
Through you, Madam Mayor. A while ago, in a different time, we were talking about a urban stormwater reservoir down that end of town, way back during a drought. I'm just wondering whether this, and I'm looking at, you know, seeking advice on the engineering, should that consideration ever come up again, will this facilitate that, or in any way preclude it?
Through the chair, I think that certainly the disposal mechanism is in the natural drainage course as
pushing it in the same area, isn't it?
That's right. So should the council in the future elect to go down that path, then yeah, certainly water harvesting would be still a reality of this drainage.
Thank you, Councillor Donny. Any other comments here, Councillor McCarthy?
Due to the known fact that the water goes under that house just below Earl Street in your plan, should we not be continuing the curb and gutter down to the lane?
Through the chair, I think, well, from what we have concluded at this stage, we can capture it into certainly curb and lentils and push it underground. There shouldn't be a need other than a curb return around the top side of Dart Street into Raleigh Street, just to control that water from skipping out of the existing table drain now and across the road, which then transpires down that Hollis Lane. So we feel confident with curb returns, we should be able to control that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments here, councillors? Recommendation, all in favour? No, thank you. For councillors, item 1308, repurpose section 356 funding request. The recommendation is that Oberon Council approve the request from Burriga District Community Association to repurpose the 2021 section 356 donation of $500 for restoration works at Burriga Hall. Do I have a mover? Councillor McKibben and Councillor McCarthy. Councillor McKibben, do you wish to speak to this one?
Just briefly, Madam Mayor, I think we're aware of the Copper Challenge one. The Copper Challenge is not going to be held, or hasn't been held in 2021, will not be held in 21-22, because it's normally in September-October period. So the Burriga community have asked for this money to be reallocated, and as council are probably aware, there have been termites found in the substrata of the hall floor in Burriga, which is causing some angst. I might just mention that they have organised for treatment to occur, and I did speak to a structural engineer today who is trying to find someone small enough to be able to get in the hole and get under the floor to carry out this investigation, because he said to me, I'm rather a large man, Andrew. So he asked me how much space there was, and I did say that I did say that I think the Burriga community would be very pleased the whole floor had to come up as it had just been sanded and finished and everything else, and we were hoping that would not be the case, and that the the damage was limited, but we had no idea at this stage. Anyway, Madam Mayor, I'm more than happy to move this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCarthy, do you wish to speak to this one?
Thank you.
Any other comments, councillors? With the recommendation, all in favour? Carried, thank you. Page 65, councillors, item 1309, 2020-21 unaudited financial statements. There's a recommendation in two parts. That council accepts the 2020-21 unaudited financial statements in accordance with section 413(3). The annual financial report is in accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 as amended and the regulations made thereunder, the Australian Accounting Standards and Professional Pronouncements, and the Local Government Code of Accounting Practice and Financial Reporting. Presents fairly the council's operating result and financial position for the year and accords with council's accounting and other records. 2, that council delegate the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, General Manager and the Corporate Services Director to sign the 2020-21 financial statements when the Audit Office review has been received and there are no material changes required. You will note, councillors, there is an addendum which you have been all given attached to this report item, and that is what we will be speaking to, will be the addendum. I will just ask the acting director to maybe speak first on this as to why this has become necessary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, we present the unaudited financial statements to you tonight. You will notice that we have issued an addendum to the original statements. That has come about through the process of the ARIC and work with our external auditors in preparation of the statements. In drawing your attention to the addendum, 2 main adjustments have been recommended to us in the preparation of the documents, in particularly 2 main adjustments. One, item 1 based around the treatment of impairment relating to depreciation. This change has been proposed by the auditors with an element of being captured in a revaluation reserve of roads. The other adjustment that has been made is towards our water and sewer revaluation. This has come about due to a revaluation that we were looking to undertake, but this was out of the cycle of generally the industry, so they have opted for us or suggested for us to take an indexation method on that revaluation. In the preparation of the statements, we have conducted that through a number of some assistance from a contract CFOs based on some of the challenges we've had with staffing during this time. And we do have Kushwan Kumar online who has prepared the statements to answer any technical questions that you may have. In summary, the addendum, the 2 main adjustments to impairment and revaluation have had a reasonable impact on the net result. The key ones that I'd like to draw your attention to is our net operating result has increased from 7.7 to 8.9 million. And our net operating result before capital grants and contributions has gone from -1.2 to a 66,000 surplus. So there's some of the adjustments that have been noted, and we put those forward for consideration to accept the unaudited statements.
Can I have someone to move this recommendation, please? Councillor McKibben. Do I have a second, please? Councillor McCarthy. Councillor McKibben, do you wish to speak to the report?
I do, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. I do have some questions on the report, and I did send some through. They had some answers at 12 o'clock, but I just wanted to clarify some of the things. One of the things is that we have the 66,000 surplus if we take out capital grants and the implications that has on employee costs and other other factors, as I understand it. So we take out the capitalisation of employee costs, put that back, and then we work out what the actual situation. But the underlying thing is that the 66,000 is only achieved because on the basis that our general fund had a 319,000 loss, and is actually, it's made up and it's negated by positive results in our sewer and water fund. So our general non-sewer, non-water, actually, if you take out capital grants, actually did make a loss. About 319,000, I think. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Doesn't change it, no. So that situation could be slightly exacerbated if depreciation increases again next year. That is correct.
That is absolutely
That is correct, and we may not be able to negate it with our sewer and water fund. In fact, our sewer fund could probably be in a bad position because the STP would probably be charged to it as a capital item, would it, to the sewer fund?
Yes.
In the depreciation would appear in the sewer fund, not in the general fund.
That's right.
But the new sports centre and the community hub would obviously come through into the general fund.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just over. I think it's important that we all appreciate this. I did have some problems with employee leave entitlements and the various references to it. On B3-1, that's the note on page 24, there is a reference to employee leave entitlements being positive 147,000. I wasn't quite sure why that was.
Yeah, through the reason that that is a positive is basically in terms of the budgeting that we've allowed in that space has been in a way over budgeted. And that this year we had done refinement in that space to return some of that budgeting back in. So there's just an over budgeted readjustment.
So that we've made an over allowance for it.
That's correct.
And then there are references to restricted funds for leave in various places on page 34. There's a reference to 881,000 for employee leave entitlements. But then in note C34, it is 551,000 for annual leave, and I think it's something like 747 for long service leave. I couldn't quite understand the changes in those, but maybe someone can explain that.
Through the chair, basically the annual leave, long service leave provisions. Understanding the question, councillor, is based on the fact that we don't provision the entire. There's a percentage that we allocate to potential leave entitlements. And from what I understand with our CFO, is that varies from council to council, and we're sitting at 64%.
But then it says in one of the notes later that we've actually provisioned for 1.2 million or something. For
Right, the councillor vote.
Yes,
So page 45 and 74 is this?
that's the one. Thank you. And it says we've got long service leave at 755 current, and annual leave at 522, superannuation at 65, and then we've got non-current employee benefit provisions, giving us a total figure of 1432.
So sorry, through the chair.
So you're saying that's
64% is that, so that's the 881
is 64% of that figure. Okay, all right, I understand that. So if I'm right, the YMCA contract is costing us roughly 400,000 a year. If we take the income, which is 222,000, is that right? and it's costing us 638. So we're actually contributing for the management of that, the fitness and pool, 400,000 out of our revenue each year. It's costing us about 400 grand, a bit over 400,000. So everyone's aware of that? That's what it's costing us.
I think when we started, it was about 332.
That's
Through the chair, also remember that also includes employee costs, running of the gym 360 odd days a year, the additional services and benefits that organisation supplies to our community that we couldn't do. So there is a cost, but that cost is also takes into consideration things that we don't do.
It's for what we've got now, what we used to pay for.
Right. What did we used to pay?
I reckon the numbers somewhere between, plus 250.
Through the chair, that was for a pool.
That's just, yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's bad. No, I just say that it's something we need to be aware of. I'm not saying.
And the comment always was that a full pool is going to cost you somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000 a year. When we looked at other examples, but for this, we've got a pool and a gym. Both run so much better, so much patronage, so much better.
Yeah, no, I'm not good. I'm not disputing it. Yeah. And the only other thing, one of the other things, on page 29, we talk about these building specialist roads and other structures and water supply network losses. Now, I understand that's the sale of assets where we've actually lost because they're still on our books at a certain value. But what sort of things are we talking about? Can you give some examples?
This is specific examples I might throw to Kush, if that's okay with the chair.
Yeah. Matthew, do you want me to speak?
Yes,
Yep.
yes, please, Kush.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Kush. Through the chair, I would like to respond on this one. Basically, if you look at the schedule number, just a minute, I'm going to the schedule in C17. In C17, also these items are displayed in carrying value of disposal column. And specifically, if you look at the roads column, item, when we are doing renewal in the roads, we need to do the destructions of lot of parts of that specific roads, and that specific amount is written down value of that item. Again, there are other structures also. When we construct those items, we did new assets of those structures. When we construct those items, we need to dispose of and few items. So that's why there is a carrying amount of that specific. Same thing for building specialized also. Except plant and equipment, we don't have any cash received for these items. But yes, for plant and equipment, we dispose of and we got cash. For other than that, it's just destruction of that item to make the addition or renewal of those specific assets.
Okay, I understand then. So what you're saying is where we build a new road or replace a built road and it still has a capital asset value and it's a capitalized new road, then it obviously has to go to zero to be able to revalue the new value of the new road. So that's what I'm saying. And the same, that's how it's, okay, I understand now. If I could go to E31, page 61, liabilities. This defined benefit scheme continues to worry, I'm sure not only me, but a lot of us. The increase from 67,000 contribution in 2021, it's now envisaged that we're going to a 15% jump to 77,000. I understand that that's due to the actuaries who are engaged by probably the state government on this fund, but that's quite a big jump in a year, 15%.
Yeah.
Could have been much worse.
It's a question of huge concern across many councils.
I mean, where will this end? I mean, it's we ever going to get out of this? Do they have a
It'll end the death.
The end of the death of the last person in it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But does anyone know when that's likely to occur? What's the youngest person in it?
What are you suggesting?
What is the youngest person in the fund? be a good idea.
Don't have that information off the top of my head.
But it would at least,
It finished, the fund finished in.
was closed to new entrants.
Yeah.
Some years ago.
Quite some time ago.
Yes, that's why I was asking the question. I mean, these things have a habit I've seen of lasting for a hell of a long time. But as, with the greatest respect, and I say this with the greatest respect, as people die off, that amount should also reduce. There's two, yes, but as the number of people in the fund reduces, the amount we should be contributing should reduce. So our actuaries, on the basis of average ages and everything, should be able to tell us with some, or these actuaries should be able to tell us with some, a range of what is expected into the future. Well, we anticipate the average age of females this, the average age of males this, and on that basis, the numbers should reduce by this, and they should also be give us an end date. And it may not be definitive, but they should.
Met through, I think one of the problems was that they made some absolute clangers during the
Very bad
GFC, and so they found themselves well short. And the nickname of the fund is not the defined benefit fund, it's called the divine benefit fund. And it has two elements. One, it stops when you die and move on to the divine, but while you're alive, it returns a divine income.
Yes.
And the state government's got the same problem.
Yes.
When they offer this as an incentive, they have a huge unfunded liability in their books through public servants on exactly these types of things, but they will not last.
The next question is G51, page 69. Now, I know the general manager's told me that service ratio has changed again because it's a result of the loan to the STP. However, let's leave that bit aside at the moment. I think this debt to service ratio should be 2.56x, not negative 2.56x, because you can't have, when you have an amount above the line, you're actually saying, how many times can I service my debt? So you can't have a negative figure below in our situation. So it should be 2.56x, and we shouldn't be red. We're not meeting the benchmark. I'm first to agree, but we are above the line.
Through the chair, we are meeting the benchmark.
Oh, it's now with the three. Oh, okay.
It's an error that's been acknowledged by the external auditor. Right. And our number is around the 9.9.
We are okay. We are. I mean, I'd assume that with the extra borrowing, maybe not 3 million, but as we increase our borrowing, we may actually come under the benchmark. So I wasn't surprised to see 2.56, but I just couldn't work out, and it didn't. It's not how I would do it. Yeah. Anyway, I'm glad it's been picked up.
It has been.
It made no sense to me.
While we're on those benchmarks, as you'll find, the only one that council does not meet this year is its own source revenue. I've never been more happy not to meet a benchmark in my time here.
Absolutely. The only thing that as I said, I was interested to do, and I know that we're not doing the exercise is not done. We've taken out the capital grants and worked out where we'd be, but if we actually got to the worst case scenario of actually taking out operating grants to see where we'd be, that might be an interesting position.
I think that'd be an interesting position for every council in New South Wales.
New South Wales, yes.
Yeah. If I'm picking up what you're suggesting.
I'm happy with the rest of Madam Mayor. I've asked my questions. Thank you. I'm quite happy to my proposal. I'm proposing that. I'm quite happy to propose the acceptance of these unaudited financial statements that they now go to. That we accept them and that we delegate the Mayor, Deputy Mayor and General Manager and Corporate Services Director to sign.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor McCarthy.
I'm happy with the report. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
For the report.
I just hope a few people are happy that you might get sledged from someone down there at O'Connell after Councillor Gibbons and myself signed these reports once, and we got sledged by the owner of the property on the other side of the fish river near the sand plant. So Well aware
Councillor.
when you sign that.
Any other comments on this one, councillors? Councillor Donny, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I had a bit of a peripatetic wandering like Councillor McKibben. I always enjoy following his analysis and finding I'm walking a similar path.
That's why we've got the gravel carpet at O'Connell.
Exactly, sir.
We can walk hand in hand.
Wonderful. Just going back to where he was talking H11, page 71, 72, old 70, old 74. For your information, that debt servicing one blew me away a bit too. But looking at the operating performance ratio, which General Manager rightly points out, he's very happy to be in the position we are. Just for your information, the rural average is 407. Own source operating revenue, the rural average is 42. So ours has been regularly above the 60% benchmark. We've dipped under because of grant funding this year. Just these are what the Office of Local Government provides us to measure ourselves against. I think we need to publicly point out the comparisons. Unrestricted ratio, again, our debt levels are absolutely terrific, 5.6, but the rural average is actually 5.91, which indicates that there's some tight money managers in the countryside, it would appear. Debt servicing ratio, I like how we're in fact 9 rather than minus 2.56. That 2.56 made no sense to me whatsoever. And I actually looked up the definition of how they calculate it, and the term that they describe, I think, was something like the operating result less depreciation, amortization, taxation, all these things. And of course, it's nowhere in our financial report. I couldn't find that number anyway. So 9's much better. The range, the rural number is 1.77, so we're well ahead of that. And the range across all councils is from 0 to 5,786.2. Rates and outstanding, desirable less than 10. We're at 7.57, which is good. The rural average is 9.65. So again, we exceed the operation of similar councils. Cash expenses cover ratio needs to be greater than 3. We're sitting at 29.43. The rural average is 14.02. So again, we perform as good money managers compared to many other councils. Can we go back to that leave one? What was the one I referenced you to, Andrew? 45.
45, that's it.
So that's 45 of 74.
Yeah.
Description of and movements in provisions down the bottom there, even though we're holding 64% of our obligations. And we mention the leave liability every year. That is, as I read it, that we have, in terms of annual leave, a lower obligation at the end of this financial period than the beginning. And in terms of long service leave, a lower obligation this period rather than the beginning.
Right.
Which is actually part of what we've been trying to achieve, to gradually bring down that very big liability on our books. Again, for people to observe. 16 of 74. B2.1, rates and annual charges. Notice the increase in ordinary rates. For the residential, is that only residential, or is that rural residential as well as residential?
Through the chair, I believe that is just residential, but I might throw to Kush just to clarify that one, please.
That is including all residential, but just a minute, I will check again. for confirmation.
We have asked this
So
clarification.
all residential is including rural residential, of course, is that correct? Is that how you see it?
I think that's what he's checking.
Yes, it's all residentials, including rural also.
You just note here from 20 to 21, all residential rose 127,000. Farmland only rose 49,000. Business 9,000. So, I mean, I've always supported that our rural residential, which is our growth numerically ratepayers, where we should look to continue to earn a little bit more of our income with considering equity as well. But just for your information, you can see that the residential, the biggest increase in rate income was from the residential grouping, both town and rural, much 2 and a bit times higher than the next. Get on myself. 33 or 74. C13. 34 of 74. Reserves, restrictions. 492. Is that? I thought we had best part of $1 million in that.
Through the chair, remember that
That
you
was the shift.
used a component of it to supplement the independent living units.
Is that some of that coming back?
Through the chair, during this year, there'll be quite a substantial amount coming back through the sale of industrial units occurring at the moment.
It's not included in this figure.
It's not included in this figure,
But there's no transfers coming back. There's money coming back from sales, but I thought we shifted one way to bring back another.
And didn't we take some for the Connell Rec Road, or was it the year before?
Yeah, that was the year before.
That was the year before. Yeah, that was 2020.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the balance, and there's additional sales to come in. There's not another adjustment. No.
Not for 30th of June.
Through the chair, the only adjustment is council resolved to supplement the shortfall in the independent living units through rental accommodation to cater for the, I think it was just under $20,000 that was allocated in that space, but that was the only transfer that we'll make.
Okay, thank you. Just about done. That I have. Thank you very much, Madam. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Councillor Tony. Are there any other questions or comments around this report, councillors? I'm going to put the recommendation. All in favour? Unanimously, thank you. Councillors, while we have push on Zoom, I'm proposing to bring item 1509 forward. If I can have a please. No, it's not 1409. Sorry, councillors.
1410.
122.
Sorry?
Page 122, 122.
Item
1411, I'm sorry, councillors. We'll have a mover that will bring 1411 forward, please. Councillor Keller, Councillor Donald. All in favour? Harry, thank you. We'll go to 1411. Quarterly budget review statements, July to September 2021. The recommendation is that the report item 1411 is received as information. Can I have someone to move that way, please? Councillor Capel and Councillor McKechnie. Thank you. Councillor Capel, do you wish to speak to this?
No, thank you.
Councillor McKechnie, do you wish to speak to this report?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's for information only at this stage.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments on this one, councillor? Recommendation, all in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you. Thank you, Push.
Thanks, Kush.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.
So we're on page 69 now, councillors. Reports for information, item 14. Of the activity report, General Manager, the recommendation is that the report item is received as information. Do I have a mover? Do I have a mover? Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Doney, thank you. Councillor McCarthy. Wish to speak to this one?
Pretty straightforward, Madam Mayor.
Yep.
The only thing is with the general manager activity, I was just wondering if we can in this part to take it on board that he reinstates star system so that we know what employees are at work each day and who aren't. It's a part of the general manager's report because it's an activity we need reinstated. It used to be there, and it's frustrating to ring up and find out that the lady at the counter doesn't know where they're in. And then you find out, oh, no, that person's been away all day.
How does a
Anyway,
report
I
come
take it,
later in the
it's
month?
just an action that needs to be actioned in a part of the, I take it these report, and I have that. But it's an opportunity that we should mention that STARS needs reinstatement as a part of an activity of the general manager.
Can I just take that on notice because we're looking at a number of things in that area, so I'm happy to take it offline and discuss it.
Okay, thank you. People know what STARS is on it. Used to be that people, you could ring up and people would say on the way for the day or whatever. Now you ring up and
Yeah,
you're not
okay.
even on site, and it's just so frustrating when you're trying to run.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Doney, you wish to speak to this one?
Just briefly, Madam Mayor, just in terms of recruitment. We have a number of poorly qualified people in O'Connell willing to take up the chief financial officer position if the money's good enough. Is the position still, I'm thinking about it, the position still open?
Through the chair, the position is still available, yes. We haven't been able to recruit to that position at this point.
Can't work for 6 months though, after being a councillor.
Good idea. Training, do we, if we've got staff undertaking financial training, TAFE courses in business skills and all sorts of nature and stuff, what allowances do we provide for them to do that?
Through the chair, depending on what it is, but we offer anything from paying for their fees, their courses, offering study leave. We offer incentives to do those sort of things. So there's incentives out there available to staff to go down that path.
And are most of those distance these days?
Through the chair,
are these gone?
Through the chair, there is a number of ways in which this can occur. If something COVID's provided for us is that remote opportunity is one that institutions are taking on board at a rapid rate of knots. But there are others that require face-to-face, and still in those institutions, you still need to sometimes go there.
Of course, I think it's actually in-person training is always more effective and stimulating than distance electronic. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Doney. Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Detailed report, if I could, just on the page 70 under the WH risk area. This records all injuries and sicknesses related to work, the register, doesn't it, for October?
Yep.
Okay. So whether they're physical injuries or mental injuries, they would be logged as a lost time injury, or and if they're on restricted duties, that would be logged as well.
Depending on what it is, but yeah, generally. Yep.
Right. Okay. And on page 71 at the bottom, if employees leave, is it the date they lodge their resignation, or is it the date they actually depart?
Through the chair, it's the date they depart.
The date they depart. Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. There are two questions.
Thank you, councillor. Any other questions on this one, councillors? Councillor Gibbons.
Am I on?
On.
On, good. Just watched the video clip on page 73. We're talking about the business and tourism, and great stuff, I thought, for the promotion of Oberon. I see there's more coming along with the free guides in partnership, and I think that's great stuff that Matt's doing there and his team. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Gibbons. Any other comments here on this one, councillors? With the recommendation, all in favour? Mary, thank you. Page 77, councillors, item 1402, monthly activity report, planning and development. The recommendation is that the report item is received as information. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Capel, thank you. Councillor McKibben, do you wish to speak to this one?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I note that the Director of Planning has provided us with some information with power lines to obviously get to the waste facility and the costing of the potential costing of the way station. And that the negotiations with the owners of the two properties over which the power line will have to pass has been relatively successful, I understand, from what you stated here, which is excellent news. I note on page 78, the JS Regulatory Services, who are the company that did the report on the tip, obviously have suggested in relation to a telehandler front-end loader, a rubber-tired loader. Do we have any costings at this stage or indicative costings as to what we might be looking at for one of those? Whether second-hand, I'm assuming second-hand on you.
With the chair, no costings at this stage. The plant foreman is looking for costings as we at the moment.
So with the power and the what, and we reasonably with the power, we're reasonably certain that the cost will the construction cost will be, well, roughly 100,000, 96,000. And the design 6,250, so we're looking at a bit over 100,000 for the power, design and construct. Is that correct?
Through the chair, the design is actually comes out of the 96,000.
Oh, it comes out of it.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so the 6,250 is included within the 96.
Through the chair, that's correct.
So we're looking at total costs of about 96,000 then. Okay, and do we have any idea what the civil works will cost for the weighbridge?
Through the chair, at this stage, I don't, but it would depend on the actual weighbridge that the council would endorse going forward. I'd make an assumption that it's probably looking at a 20% civil works cost.
Okay, so would we be doing that, or would we be asking the weighbridge provider to do that when we go out for our RFT or request a quote?
Through the chair, yeah, well, ask the technical service director to
Certainly something through the chair. Certainly something we could consider internally doing that with resourcing and machinery as part of that, depending on who the successful award of tender was to in negotiation.
And there might be underground power, would there be from the pole to the weighbridge, or would it be, I don't know how adjacent, or it's adjacent to the building, is it?
Through the chair, that yeah,
because we'd have to cost in taking the power from wherever it is to the weighbridge as well, I'm assuming.
Correct.
And that's probably an extra cost. Okay, so when would we expect to have a more detailed costing of these overall total costing of these three elements? We expect that by December or February?
Through the chair, I think February would be a more suitable time or appropriate time. Also based on the negotiations with the landowners, determine timing going forward for the power.
Okay, so the 96,000 includes all the issues with the landholders. It's not expected that we have to pay any money for landholders or anything else for an easement.
Through the chair, there could be legal costs involved that may be required
I'll set up
to
for
create
easements,
easements, etc.
and we have to pay that. Yes. Right, okay. All right, well, it'd be nice in February if there would be for those councils the next term to have a full costing breakdown of those three. Maybe put in the action items. I suppose it's not a resolution, so it can't go into the action items, can it?
Through the chair, it does form part of your short-term actions from our recommendation.
the JSR.
So they're already in there.
Yeah, okay. But it didn't say February. It should.
No, well, now it does. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have nothing more other than to note there's the number of cats and dogs impounded continues to be relatively small, which is probably good.
Councillor, did you have anything to?
No, nothing
discuss?
further.
Any other comments, councillors? Councillor Hickney.
Yes, Madam Mayor, just if we could go back to the weighbridge for a moment. JS Regulatory Services, they've obviously been employed as consultants to recommend the type, configuration and capacity of this weighbridge.
Through the chair, no, not at all, just to assist in providing advice, not to make recommendations.
How have we determined what configuration, what size and weighbridge that we're looking at?
Through the chair, I think be based on obviously having the mains power, the waste facility first, and then the types of facilities that would be a recommendation that would come back to council with supporting information to allow a decision to be made.
Yeah, basically, I guess what I'm asking is it in ground or above ground? Format?
Through the chair, it'd be a facility for a waste station that could be moved if necessary, if required in the future. Right?
So, what I'm saying is we don't want to go in a roundabout way. I'm saying we don't want to go in ground. We want to have an above ground portable one.
So through the chair, the way the JS report indicated was it should be a movable structure from memory.
Definitely has to.
And that gives the capacity to integrate that with the changes that you're going to make to your tip over time. So it would definitely need to be above ground.
Oh, most definitely. And then also what it does, it gives you the capacity or the option to increase the capacity of it cheaply down the track if you want to weigh larger vehicles. We just need to get it right, that's all. I'm a little bit concerned that we're waiting on the power to put it in, but I can't see that as a hurdle. Plenty of weighbridges operating a long way from power. Yeah, I don't see that as a hurdle, but anyway, I've got a bit further to go yet, but we just need to have some more detail around these things before we go too far down the track. This weighbridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Donny.
Just on 77 minute here, the short-term rental accommodation. It's out of the blue, but what's the number of available beds, overnight beds available over and
Good question. Ask the director that.
Through the chair, I think it's just below 1,000.
Yeah, it hovers through the chair, just hovers around 1,000, depending on the where the seasonality and Airbnb comes online. Yeah.
And do you have any idea of the breakup there? I mean, not precise, so forgive me. And I know I'm springing it, but you know, it's 28 registered hosted properties, 19 non-hosted properties, and I'm assuming is a motel one of those? Is that a hosted property or is that a different classification?
Yeah, through the chair, the hosted properties. Sorry, the registered ones would be your more traditional style of accommodation, your hotels, B&Bs, where a lot of the Airbnb stays would fall into that non-registered, and they are increasingly taking over the majority of the mix of accommodation that we have to offer in the region. Every year we do look at it, is steadily increasing that side of accommodation offering. So, yeah.
And that's part of that 1,000.
That's right, yeah.
And do we have, may not be through you, sir, but do we have many, you know, regular, because they now have to be registered, so do we have much inquiry as through you, Madam Mayor, to either director, in much inquiry in continuing to establish registered Airbnb facilities? Is it a growth area?
Through the chair, certainly a growth area. If they're not registered with the Department of Fair Trading, then the host Airbnb or stays are required to take them off their listing, so they can't then use those facilities going forward unless they're registered.
And it's continuing to grow.
And it is continuing to grow. I'm sure that will. It came, as I said, it came on board on the 1st of November, and I think it will continue to grow.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any other? Councillor Gunn?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, the power, I don't think we'll see that in the first 2 or 3 months in the new year, because I think the Fondo ground's just unpractical, especially for, yeah. Anyway, that's one problem. I'm a bit concerned about this JS regulatory service with the report last month about the telehandler at 250 to 300,000, and I made a comment we don't need one with cat written on it, and I give Damien a brochure. I think this week, I think it was 160,000 for one that is very suitable to the what's name. So yeah, I think we've got to take a bit better look. We don't need a yellow one with cat written on it.
It's the yellow Chinese.
Hey? Well, as you see, if you look around, the RTC actually got a telehandler for their operations, and I don't know what they paid for that. But anyway, on page 78, you come down the bottom there, and we've got a new shed, 1023 O'Connell Road, and then we've got a new shed, the same number, and then another one is operator waste service, and the waste service again. So what are we doing? Are we filling the page in to make them look busy, or? No. Well, that happened last month, Madam Mayor, that we had a duplication. What I'm getting at is the idea of having this scale here, so you could track and give us an indication of how busy the staff are, which is fine. We just had a resignation, and it's going to put more pressure on the staff. But what I don't mind getting a report, but you know, here's what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, and 2 of them are for the duplication. Is that correct?
Through the chair, the 1952 O'Connell Road, there were two on-site wastewater systems applications there.
Yeah,
2 different systems, so that's why.
So it's
that's twice.
2 different systems.
2 different systems, correct?
Okay.
The 1023 O'Connell Road, it's the same. So my apologies, I'll have to get that removed.
No, that's fine. I just trying to get
up,
understanding. Yeah. And as you can see, the next 2 down the thing, new shed, O'Connell Road, and the new shed, Lanes Road, new shed over on 79. You can see where I'm coming from to try and get these things exempt. They're really only auxiliary buildings on a block of land. If they meet a required size. Anyway, thank you for the director's report.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments here, Councillor? With the recommendation, all in favour? Carried. Thank you. Page 83, councillors, 1403 monthly activity report, technical services. The recommendation is that the report is received as information. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Gibbons and Councillor McKibben. Councillor Gibbons, do you wish to speak to this report?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Just in relation on the Campbell's River Road, I have a few concerns with regards to the design and the width, and going to have an on-site discussion with the relevant people this week just to make sure. I know it's been a wet time, but we just need to keep to the standards that were set in stage 1 of this road with our design. And just a question for the engineer with regards, it's getting a bit dark here. On that first page where above the picture where it says that it completed of gravel and stabilised pavement length of 1750. Does that, what are you stabilising with for a start, Chris? Is that a concrete stabiliser or is it ash and some other type of thing?
Through the chair, it's a limestone fly ash blend. It's not concrete, so it is a malleable product in terms of being able to rework it.
Right, so that's what we started with. The contractor started with on the Barriga Road end before, was it? Started with the lime. It's the same sort of gear as that, and then we changed halfway along that road.
Through the chair, it's certainly as per the geotechnical report that we originally set out, as per right across the 21 kilometres of pavement, as per the recommendation of the borehole test. So, yeah, it is correct in terms of what we did start with. The only change that did happen was with cement and fly ash near the Campbell's River as the terrain did change a little bit, and that was the recommendation of the geotech of the only part of the project that we did change that particular mix.
So do you get a more stable base with the cement, do you? There's a stronger pavement?
Yeah, through the chair, certainly, look, it is a stronger pavement, and it's really subject to the soil classification and conditions as to the design mix that is used, and going down into a wetter area. That's really the recommendations that are around that geotech report in that change.
So with the stabilised pavement now completed, are you saying that can be continually worked to get the humps and hollers and design out, or is that's usually when you leave it alone, isn't it, when you get that done?
Through the chair, certainly with the wet weather, recognising their impacts, but yes, it does have an ability to rework the pavement prior to a bitumen spray seal being applied to it. So that's relatively, I suppose we're pretty fortunate in that aspect.
Okay, I think that's all I need to ask. Thank you.
Councillor Gibbons, Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to say a particularly thorough report that went through all the aspects of technical services is dealing with in quite some detail, including substantial photographs. It's obviously, as we've all said, a very busy time for technical services at the moment. So with the number of projects at once, it's obviously taking considerable management time. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Any other comments on this one, councillors? Councillor McCarthy.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Put in the council request form for Humphreys Lane. As you know, it's failed, and I think there's two people wishing to understand start construction of the house. When do we look like getting it repaired, and why did it fail? And I thought my council request form was the estimated cost of getting it repaired, because it's going to have to be ripped up and gravelled and pipes put under it, isn't it?
Yeah, so through the chair, as outlined on page 87, there's certainly further investigation going into that. Groundwater is really the attributed causation of why it has failed, no doubt about that. Costings at this stage are being put together. I've had a number of contractors view that particular section of road, top section of where it has failed, and also again failed on some section of the former formation of Humphreys Lane. So in recognising that, I am putting those costings together, and we will bring a report probably back to council what that looks like. At this stage, very hard to move. As you can attest, the 100 mils and consecutive rainfall has made it very hard to bring any trucks or machinery in there, which would mainly exacerbate the current situation. So I do appreciate there are people waiting to build dwellings there, and I also understand they're going to have difficulties moving inside their paddocks, as I am on trying to fix that road at the same time. So I will bring a report back to council on what that looks like.
Okay, and will we be completing Noonanville Road before the end of this calendar year?
Through the chair, that's certainly the objective at this stage. Yes, we have had some setbacks, no doubt about that. So it's really, I'm in the hands of what does fall out of the sky, unfortunately, but ambitiously am anticipating on trying to finish that prior to the end of the calendar.
Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you. Any other comments here, councillors? The recommendation, all in favour? Carried, thank you. Page 90, councillors, 1404, monthly activity report, corporate services. Recommendation is the report item is received as information. Can I have a mover that way, please? Councillor Capel and Councillor McKibben. Councillor Capel, do you wish to comment?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor.
Councillor McKibben?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. An extensive report, and it's good to see that changing around some of our licenses and other things has been able to, and our mobile phone plan has been able to save us overall about $25,000. That's referenced on page 91 of the mobile phone review, second item down, and under Office 365 licenses about 2/3 of the way down page 91. So I'm happy to second this motion.
Thank you. Any other comments here, councillors? I will just say how I was very pleased to hear that around 66 residents were assisted with downloading their vaccination certificates, and I've had a lot of feedback about that, and they were extremely grateful for the patience shown by the library staff, I have to say. No other comments? Councillor Joney.
Just two quick ones, Madam Mayor. I noticed that myself, actually. I was in the library doing something. A number of people came in. I thought both of the workers in the library at that time were remarkably considerate and really did an excellent job. Just the other one, I'm again drawing it to people's attention. It was actually in the annual report, but I didn't find that where I made that mark because I didn't have any sticky pads. But they're talking about the Open Office and the Microsoft and the Teams and the Office 365 and something like that. The software cost in the annual report was just short of $400,000, which is staggering. I mean, that's not hardware. And I say this every annual report time that the computer companies, I think, develop. They're the masters of planned obsolescence these days, and they just come up with a new software program that doesn't, to make sure it doesn't mesh with anybody else's, so we buy another one. 400,000 for software. Hardware was less than 100,000. So we annually, that's huge sums of money.
It also runs your complete governance framework.
Say again?
It also runs your complete governance framework.
Oh, yeah, true. It's staggering. It's a corporate theft at the moment.
Through the chair, it's the value for money you get out of that spend that is why we're looking to change what we do.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, councillor. Any other comments here, councillors? Sorry,
no, it's just a comment on the independent living area units. Matt and myself were down there the other day having a look at it, and Matt got a bit of a spray, as the council was with him, and Matt took it on board very well. That there was a comment about the carports not being up, and a few other things about the garbage bin, and something that Matt didn't need it. He's trying his best, and he's trying to change things over, and it takes a bit of time. But yeah, Matt copped a spray, which was not called for. Because the person not going to vote for him anyway.
That's okay. I'm going to put the recommendation all in favour. Carried, thank you.
Madam Mayor, could we just go back to the engineering one? I thought we were getting a report on the underground, the 5 locations across the Oberon Street, weren't we? At this one, weren't we? No. Weren't we getting a report on the cost?
Is it in the action plan?
Hey?
Is it in the action plan?
Okay, I thought it was that he's agreed the other night to get a costing back to this meeting anyway. That was in the briefing.
Through the chair, we indicated that Chris is going to do a costing to put conduits under
Yeah,
the
that was the IBS, it wasn't the formal council.
So we'll bring that back to you when we have those costings.
Oh, okay. Thought it was coming to this one. Thank you.
Apologies, councillor.
Page 98, councillors, 1405, statement of investments. The recommendation is that council item 1405 is information. A mover, please. Councillor Capel and a seconder, Councillor McKechnie. Thank you. Councillor Capel, do you wish to speak to this one?
Just very briefly, Madam Mayor, I'm pleased that 1.9 was ruled correct. There was a fair few disbelievers here last time. It was wrong. We're laughing.
We would be if they were all at that. Councillor McKechnie.
No, nothing to add. It's pretty straightforward.
Any other comments here, councillors? The recommendation all in favour. Carried, thank you. Page 101, councillors, 1406 grants monthly update. The recommendation is that the report is received as information. A mover, please. Councillor McKibben and a seconder, please. Councillor Dunn, thank you. Councillor McKibben, do you wish to speak to this one?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, we know about the 349,000 for stage 2 of the O'Connell ground. So fortunate about the other parts of those missing out for the sporting complex, the common upgrade, and the sewer treatment plant. It'll be interesting to see what the feedback is for those unsuccessful projects. On the bottom of page 101, obviously, the number of grants submitted. The BDSBR on the 5th of October, covering a whole lot of things that we've discussed previously. And there are quite a few grants pending. 12, I think, probably approximately, that was submitted in June. So I suppose they will be likely to be, we'd like to be told in February on the basis of the time frame it's been taking for the other grants.
Can't tell, sorry, councillor. In the hands of the government, really.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
But no, everything else is fine. I'm happy to move this thing, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Downey, did you wish to speak to this one?
Only to mirror Councillor McKibben's comments about the unsuccessful grants there, which was disappointing. I noticed the comment, we requested a feedback session and I haven't been yet notified of a date for that. I thought there was more optimistic.
Feedback for what?
For the consultation session, for a feedback session, re the unsuccessful projects in 1A.
Okay.
I thought that there was a more optimistic comment when these things were, when we originally found out that we were unsuccessful. Well, they invited us to reapply for some in particular. Is that the case, or was it just a group invitation?
No, through the chair, there's always much commentary around inviting people to reapply for funding. It's just those funding opportunities need to be open before you can reapply.
All right, so no, I thought there was, particularly at the STP, I thought there was a specific invitation that said you just need to fiddle a few things.
Through the chair, we continue to seek opportunities in that space.
Okay. Thanks, Ben. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Any other comments here, councillor?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, to have a river charge. It's just, I noticed on page 104, 28,313.45 was the end spend that's now going to be spent on town signage. I was a bit unclear what the horseshoe shaped stone wall around the main Oberon entrance side, O'Connell Road, was going to tell. That was part of the original signage diagram, the report we got, wasn't it?
Yeah, through the chair, it was part of one of our ongoing projects that we would look at under the, what did you call our toolkit?
Yeah.
That it required further funding. This one's just been able to support that through the additional funds. The other issue that you have to, it's not an issue. The other thing, we've already built it. Yeah. The consideration you have to make is that the money has to be distributed within the funding deed that you have for those projects.
Yes, I understood that. Yeah, I understood that.
And it was the only one that we had contingency to, in fact, progress.
And what are street sign blade decals?
So we're
Over the existing street sign.
yeah. So as part of that, we did a whole heap of rebranding of our street signs to put the More Than You Imagine logo on our street signs.
Okay, right here. And the planning portal grant extension. I was a little bit confused here because in the first paragraph, it says the Regional New South Wales Planning Portal Grant was due to be expended by 30th of June. Understand? Then says, this is the first paragraph under item 5104. To date, Council has used the grant to install new shelving. Now, when I read that, I thought that meant all funding, but then the next one says we've still got 34,000. Is that right?
Yeah. So the
So we didn't
shelving
use
cost
it all?
16, no. And the projects we'll be looking at is to support the planning and development team in progressing the portal and doing things that would give the community their understanding on how to use the portal.
So it's to give our staff better training as well, I'm
Yeah.
assuming, because they're having difficulties from what's been mentioned previously in the
So
report.
staff, additional staff.
And people.
Support staff.
Yep. So are we going to issue how to use it video in easier terms to understand for our people? Or what are we going to do? I don't know. Because there have been comments that it's not as easy to use as people thought it might have been.
Happy to.
Through the chair,
to
the Department of Planning actually run e-planning webinars,
Right.
and all my staff now, we've all signed up to those, in myself, and they're happening sort of ad hocly over a few weeks, so on all different sections of the portal. And in addition to what the General Manager said, we're also part of that assistance will be to help write additional procedures for internal and to help customers as well.
And will that expend the 34,000? I take it we're not paying the Department of Planning for them to give us lectures on how to use their own portal.
That's correct. They're free. Sorry, through the chair.
So we will expend the total 34,000, or we have some other ideas for it?
Through the chair, the aim would be to spend it, so we don't have to give it back, I suppose. But if we're not expending it on the on assistance, we'll look at other means.
I mean, if people are having difficulty, is it worth putting something in? Well, I suppose we haven't got the community hub yet, or community hub or something where people can actually go and submit their applications online there. I don't know.
We encourage that through the library now.
Yeah,
So
could be
it's
through the
still the
library,
same,
yeah.
yeah. It's still the same thing.
I'm happy with it.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments here, Councillor McCarthy?
Just this portal, the comment I got today, it's set up for on the other side of the blue sandstone bluff. It's not set up for out here because the planners that I spoke to today, they're having heaps of trouble with that variety of things that happen in the bush. The portal just doesn't accept it. You get what I mean?
Yeah, I knew there's teething problem.
Telling our local member that he's implemented something that is only in favour for over there.
Thank you, Councillor. Now the comments, I'm going to put the recommendation, all in favour. Okay, thank you. Page 105, 1407, water and sewer plant report. Recommendation is that the report is received as information. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McKechnie. Councillor Kellam, thank you. Councillor McKechnie, do you wish to speak to this report?
Just briefly, Madam Mayor, pleasing to see the dam running over. But the other pleasing note is the graph on page 105 shows in the figures above our usage, shows our usages remain pretty static. They've been a rather wet time, so that indicates that our water users are still continuing their good practices. So I think they should be commended on that.
That's all. Shower more often.
Councillor Kellam.
Not directly on this report, Madam Mayor, but I think it's a good opportunity to just mention I was at a workshop today online about strategic water policy and creating strategic plans for water in this region. Engineers, which I found a bit difficult because I was the only I was the only elected representative, so it was an engineering viewpoint rather than a community viewpoint. But at least DPI is thinking about it. I think they've got a long way to go to understand what strategic planning means. But at least we're talking to them, and at least they're listening.
Councillor, any other comments here, councillors? Putting recommendation, all in favour? Carried, thank you. Page 107, councillors 1408, monthly update, status of council resolution. Recommendation is that the report item is received as information. Could I have a mover, please? I'm going to move the councillor McKibben. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Capel, thank you. Do you have any?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I commend the report. I've been through it, and it seems to reflect the progress of most of the issues. Some of the issues that are in here, obviously, we still have to consider later in these papers. Such as community hub costing, etc. So I'll comment on that when we get to that.
Councillor Capel? You have a comment on this one, councillor? Recommendation, all in favour? Very, thank you. Page 117, councillors 1409, CCTV audit and review. The recommendation is that council note the report item 1409 for information. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Capel and Councillor McKibben, thank you. Councillor Capel, do you wish to speak to this one?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor McKibben, do you wish to speak to this one?
Only to say, Madam Mayor, we obviously have a dilemma about this CCTV audit and review. Although we're noting this report, it seems to me that in some stage in the near future, we're going to have to take some actions in relation to what we do with this. And we'll probably have to get a positive recommendation as to what the most cost-effective, what is most cost-effective to do. In this day and age, I'm not sure that it's tenable to remove the CCTV cameras due to security risks and other issues. Although we are a small town, towns and cities are putting security in CCTV down their main streets and other main thoroughfares rather than taking them out. But obviously, what this report highlights is that what we have to look at is what we can do economical or what's obviously practicable. It's not practical to have people go up ladders to try and recover recordings, etc. And I note that we do have existing CCTV in our existing facilities and outdoor and council facilities. So, and some of that hasn't been installed for so long. So obviously we've got we can learn some lessons from those, from what we've done there, maybe. But to not have CCTV is probably not an option. So we really need a really positive recommendation. I'm not sure when it's envisaged this was coming back. Is it sort of early next year, February, March? Yeah. For you, with a positive recommendation and a costing, because obviously what we've got is not filling the bill. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And through the chair, and that's exactly what the report says. We're going to look at all these options, we'll cost them and bring them back against consideration.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments on this one, Councillor? Councillor McCarthy.
How long is camera 8 cable being faulty?
Through the chair, I'm not exactly sure of the time, but it's a reasonable amount of time from what I understand. So.
Ridiculous one camera causes problems for all the rest of them.
Yeah. The element of daisy chaining it, the announcing at the reception. So.
More not serious.
I just thought that the previous requirement of the director, when it was Lynette Stafford, if all the cameras weren't working, we were to get a report back That was all, and the director was going to check them every Friday to assure us that they all were working, and now we get the report to say that one hasn't been working. So. Are we misled, or what's going on there? I'm not blaming Matt, but I want to know how long it's been down for.
Well, the previous director is no longer here.
I realise that,
Answer
but
that
in,
question, councillor.
Yeah.
But we've got the report now, and there will be a review, and it will come back to council with, as Matt has said, with costings and options. So I think all we can do now is move forward, unless there's a further comment.
And my only comment would be that having that within the report doesn't say that the cameras are out, like we have all our cameras operational, except for this one apparently.
Yeah.
I don't want to where camera is, because that may preclude what you do, but I'll bring that report back and let you know.
I realise that, but the last director assured us that if the camera wasn't working, I'll get a report now.
I'll take it on notice.
And that's what we're getting.
Thank you, councillor. Any other comments on this one, councillors? Put the recommendation, all in favour? Carried, thank you. Page 119, 1410, Community Hub update. There's a recommendation there that council receive the report item as information. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McKibben and Councillor Trimmer. Councillor McKibben, do you wish to comment?
I do, thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, this report was asked, and considering the through life costing of the community hub, and also what fit out costs. If I could, Madam Mayor, under fit out approximate costings, that's sort of from what's at the bottom of page 119 going down to operating costs. So in total, we're looking at somewhere between 140 to 150,000 for fit out costs. That's reasonable. If I add the 30, paragraph 1, racking and shelving, design furniture, which is covered by the comment at the base of 119 in the table, and then we talk about active equipment, 5 to 10,000. So I've used 10,000 there. So we're looking at sort of 144,000 roughly. And with contingency, let's say 150,000. So that's going to. So we need to find 150K somewhere for fit out. Is that correct?
Chair, that's correct.
Right. So the next council should be sort of made aware that that has to be when's the estimated completion date for the hub?
Through the chair, it's August, September at this point in time.
August, September 22.
Yeah.
So then in 22, 23, they'll have to find 150K for fit out. Or before.
I'd say before then.
I think that's
But, Councillor Cal?
the racking and shelving, the way I understand it, that's its value is 30,000. We already have it.
Yeah, some of it we
So
do already
that's going to be knock that down to 120. And there,
No, it says additional shelving. Additional shelving. Yes, they're going to use the existing, but the additional is 30, so it is 150. All right.
But there are opportunities through the State Library that we will
Pursue.
we do get this money annually, which will be applied to the fit out.
Okay. So maybe for the next council, we could get recommendations suggested of how the costing of what it is, maybe for February or March meetings. That could be noted. The operating cost of just trying to do a bit of obviously the cleaning, which is window cleaning, sorry, on page 121 is a bit uncertain, difficult to cost as building is in planning phase. It's talking about ground levels probably included in existing, but the external higher roof windows will incur additional cost. Don't have an indication of that. But we're looking at at least 18,000 more from what I can see. For utilities, we're probably looking at another 7,000. Cleaning, we're looking at 8,000. Maintenance, including air conditioning, says marginally more expensive. So if it's 2,558 now, do we allow another 500? That's bringing us at 15,500, and we don't know what the window cleaning is going to be. And we assume the garden maintenance will be the same. So it could be probably 20,000. That's probably the upper end of the additional through life costs. I'm hearing that the staffing is going to be equivalent, full-time equivalent, because that's the staffing item one.
Unless council in the future resolve to do something else, which is going to have an impact on that.
Yeah, and we don't know what the energy, we're assuming the new building is going to be more energy efficient, but until we don't actually know where it's going to go.
Right.
So so any idea of what we should budget for carrying forward as a through life cost, additional through amount per year that we'll need to do this? Would we say cover it?
Through the chair, I've circled 20K.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just through the chair, comment just that the other element of this is that we do envisage a high use of venue fee generation through a more, a new facility, more big space. That's an element that we are looking at as well through the cost.
Okay.
Right, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to recommend this.
You, Councillor Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased with the costing has been done. It was always going to be more than what we've currently got, but we're also getting a pretty damn good amenity, which brings us into the 21st century. And there's an expectation that comes with some cost, and I think that is a reasonable cost for a substantial and more.
Thank you, Councillor. Are any other comments from councillors on this one? Recommendation, all in favour? Carried, thank you. Nine councillors, item 15. There is no urgent business this evening. Page 129, item 16, closed session and confidential reports. For the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government Act General Regulation 2005, in the opinion of the General Manager, the following business is of a kind as referred to in Section 10A, Section 2 of the Act, and should be dealt with in a part of the meeting closed to the media and the public. I'd like to thank the members of the public for joining us this evening on the Zoom meeting and say good night. I now call for a councillor to move that council moves into closed session, please. Councillor McKibben and Councillor Pelham, thank you. All in favour? Carried, thank you. I now request that the minutes be turned off the recording at 8:25 p.m. Following resolutions were made in closed session, and there were no members of the public present at this time. Item 1601, the council undertake the recommendations as outlined within the report. Item 1602, that Australia Day awards be made in the following categories: Citizen of the Year, Young Citizen of the Year, persons up to and including 25 years, Sportsperson of the Year, Young Sportsperson of the Year, persons up to and including 25 years, Sports Team of the Year, Community Event of the Year, Volunteer Group of the Year and Volunteer of the Year, Environmental Champion of the Year. That an invitation be extended to all award nominees, councillors, management staff and their partners to meet the Australia Day Ambassador and partner at a function on the evening of 25th of January 2022. That the 2022 Australia Day celebrations be held at the Oberon Showground Hall, with COVID-19 restrictions being considered as part of the planning for the event. The next ordinary meeting of Oberon Council will be held on Thursday, the 30th of December 2021, commencing at 10 a.m. I now declare the meeting closed at 9:02 p.m. and wish everybody a very good evening. Thank you.